There you go. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by all speakers. Large print materials are available upon advance request. If you would like other of these accommodations, please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833 at extension 202. The notice of non-discrimination rights and protections to beneficiaries with regard to the federal Title VI non-discrimination protections and the state non-discrimination protection is posted in this meeting room and is available on the Colony Planning Council website. And again, please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833 at extension 202 for more information. And thank you. I wanted to call to order, and Bill, if you would do the roll call.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank
Abington.
you.
John Stone.
Welcome, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Avon. Bridgewater.
Shane O'Brien, Town Planner.
Welcome, Shane. Brockton.
JD Grace from the Mayor's Office.
Thank you. Duxbury. East Bridgewater. Easton. Halifax. Hanover. Hanson.
Don Howard from Hanson.
Welcome, Don. Thank you. Kingston. Pembroke. Plymouth. Plimpton. Stoughton. West Bridgewater. And I know we have Whitman.
Dan Salvucci.
Thank you, Dan. How about MassDOT District 5?
Hi, everybody. Barbara LaChance, District 5.
Hey, Barbara, thank you.
Thank
MassDOT Office of Transportation Planning. And Brockton Area Transit.
Glenn Geiler, present.
Thanks, Glenn. All right, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending, and welcome to any new members that are attending today. Next agenda item. Public comments?
Noreen, if I may.
Yes.
Dan Salvucci, I want to thank Old Colony Planning Council and the members of the Joint Transportation in having faith in you as chair and me as vice chair for another term, and I want to thank them very much.
Yes, and I'd like to add to that. I didn't do that earlier, but I just want to segue into what Dan said. I appreciate everybody's confidence in both of us, and we do both enjoy the group very much. Thank you all. Okay, next item is minutes. The minutes would be of June 2nd, 2020.
Go ahead. I'll make a
Motion on the
motion,
floor.
Dan Salvucci.
Second.
Second, Don Howard.
Do we, Mary, I kind of like how you do it at the council meeting, that everyone votes. So I guess, Bill, I'm going to keep you a little busy. If you could do that roll call for the votes, because I think that's just clearer the way the council does it. I like that.
Okay. Abington.
Approved.
Thank you. Avon.
Approved.
Bridgewater.
Thumbs up. Aye.
Brockton. Thank you.
Approved.
Duxbury. East Bridgewater. Easton. Halifax. Hanover. Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you. Kingston. Pembroke. Plymouth. Plimpton. Stoughton. West Bridgewater. And finally, Whitman.
Approved.
Thank you.
Brockton Area Transit is also yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thanks.
Glenn.
Next item is USDOT Technical Assistance in Capacity Building.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is me. This is for the communications packet. As Chair O'Toole said, the first item is USDOT Technical Assistance and Capacity Building. As part of MassDOT's Thriving Communities Initiative, the USDOT recently introduced 2 new technical assistance and capacity building resources, a DOT Navigator, as well as the Thriving Communities Program. The DOT Navigator is a new one-stop shop to access the array of resources across the department that are designed to provide technical assistance and help grantees navigate the application, planning, project delivery, funding and financing, and the implementation processes. And the Thriving Communities Program will be launching later this fall, and it will provide technical assistance and capacity building to enable under-resourced communities to identify, develop, and deliver transformative transportation projects. For any questions, or if you would like to look into either of these programs, please click on the links provided in the staff report. The next item is the new Protect Formula Program, $7.3 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure law to help communities build resilient infrastructure. The US DOT's Federal Highway Administration recently announced new guidance and $7.3 billion in formula funding to help states and communities better prepare for and respond to extreme weather events such as wildfires, flooding, and extreme heat. The funding is available to states over 5 years to make transportation infrastructure more resilient. Eligible improvements can involve adapting existing transportation infrastructure or new construction to keep communities safe by bolstering infrastructure's ability to withstand extreme weather events. For more information on this program, please see the Federal Highway Administration's website as well as their fact sheet, and with these provided links. Next item is the Baker-Polito administration announces $5.54 million in Complete Streets funding program awards. Boston got about 60% of total award dollars, and it will fund projects in environmental justice communities. This is the 13th overall grant round for this program since the Baker-Polito administration launched the program in 2016. The Complete Streets funding program has now awarded over $83 million in total funding through 444 technical assistance and construction awards since its initiation. Today's announcements regarding the Complete Streets funding program provides funding to the following communities. East Hampton received $286,000. And I see that Kingston received just under $400,000 to implement pedestrian improvements at the intersection of Route 106, Route 27, and Evergreen Street. And here are the remaining projects that were awarded in the communities. Approximately 60% of the total award dollars will fund projects located in environmental justice communities. Which are determined by using US Census data and are defined by the Commonwealth as communities in which the median household income is equal to or less than 65% of the statewide median, 25% or more of the residents identify as race other than white, or 25% or more of households have no one over the age of 14 and who speaks English only or very well. For more information on Complete Streets, please click on the provided hyperlink. And if you would like to see the announcement for the award, the last hyperlink has that information. The next item is the remote meeting extension for local boards signed into law. It was signed on July 16th by Lieutenant Governor Polito as acting governor, signed in legislation to extend key pandemic era accommodations, including remote local government meeting authorizations through March 31st of 2023. Cities and towns, again, have the option to hold public meetings remotely following the guidelines that were first declared that were put into effect when COVID was first declared a public health emergency in March 2020. And if you have any other questions or would like to see any more information, please click on the link in the staff report. And that is communications.
Thank you, Sean. The next item is the Brockton Area Transit, and that would be Glenn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a number of updates today, so bear with me. First of which, we always like to report when we have a steady yet consistent incremental increase in ridership, which is great, and we hope that that continues, and it's a good sign of people returning back to our service. We also want to report today that some of you might have seen in the Old Colony Planning Council newsletter, but BAT is now offering the MBTA Youth Pass, which is an addition to our existing Student Pass program. So that's BAT is administering the program for all of our member communities. So more information on that, I'd be happy to provide if anybody wants to learn how to sign up or help others sign up. It's all online, which is great. It's really accessible program. And if you're eligible for the MBTA Youth Pass program, you're eligible for our Student Pass program, which works on all of BAT's buses. So exciting that we're able to offer that to our service area communities. We are also in the process of expanding our Rockland service in a on-demand and microtransit format. That's gonna start in September. We're also working on a expanded bus stop project at the Westgate Mall. So BAT is recently the recipient of a shared streets and spaces grant. So our thanks to MassDOT. So that project will expand our existing bus stop at the Westgate Mall over by the Market Basket. The goal is to improve pedestrian access and safety while boarding and alighting the bus. So that's our second busiest bus stop here in the city, other than here at the BAT Center. And that particular bus stop serves multiple routes. We're also in the process of launching another mobile ticket advertising campaign. So we also offer an app where riders can purchase their tickets anywhere and in order to access our system. So it's a great tool for folks who aren't able to get to a ticket vending machine here at the BAT Center, and it's contactless payment, and you can use it on any of our buses. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Thanks.
Noreen, you're muted.
Bruce, did you have a question? No. Anyone have questions of Glenn? Thank you so much, Glenn. Great
Thank you.
update. Next item is the Greater Attleboro Taunton Regional Transit Authority, the GATRA update. Sean?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few items on the update for GATRA since our last meeting in June. First and foremost, like to announce that Mary Ellen DeFrias, formerly of Mass Development, is officially GATRA's new administrator. It was not official as of our last meeting, but in July, it became official. So she is the new GATRA administrator. I checked, she is not on the call today, but congratulations to her on the new position. Another update, GATRA now has a mobile app kind of similar to what Glenn was reporting for BAT. It is called GATRA Pay, which users can pay for their fare as well as buy any of the passes that GATRA has to offer. And for all of the routes that are in the cities of Attleboro and Taunton, there was a new schedule that went into effect July 18th, and there were 14 total routes that were affected by the new schedule change. And that is all.
Does anyone have any questions of Sean? Hearing none. Thank you, Sean, very much. I'm going to go to, which would be Sean again, the South Coast Rail Project.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As everybody knows, South Coast Rail Project is working to restore commuter rail service to the cities of Taunton, Fall River, and New Bedford to restore service to the South Coast. Phase 1 is going to provide a one-seat ride by extending the existing Middleborough-Lakeville commuter rail line to Taunton and then go south and branch off to
I'm
the
at a
cities of
meeting.
Fall River and New Bedford. During the months of June and July, work that was done was basically a continuation of work that's been going on in the previous months, which includes fencing installation in 8 communities on the Fall River and Middleborough secondary lines, 24-hour work at the new Middleborough station site, improvements to the CSX rail yard, also in the town of Middleborough, 24-hour track work in the town of Berkeley, as well as city of Fall River and town of Raynham, culvert work in the town of Freetown, and 24-hour crossing work in Berkeley, Freetown, and Lakeville. If anybody is interested in signing up for the weekly email updates on the South Coast Rail Project, you can click on the hyperlink in the staff report and enter your email address to get automatic updates. And that is all.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions? Hearing none, I'm going to move forward to the next item. Next item is the FFY 2022-2026 TIP program implementation.
Thank you. Thank
Bill?
you, ma'am. Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not a whole lot to report with the tip update this month. The tip is pretty stable at this point. It hasn't been a lot of changes. Sean, if you just want to fast forward to the slide that has the highlight, the blue highlight, I think it's right at the end, actually. There you go. So back in June, there was a virtual design public hearing for the Stoughton Pleasant Street Route 139 project. So this project is to relocate and newly construct about 1,200 feet of road, about 1,200 feet of Route 139 in Stoughton. If you're familiar with that area, it's been an issue for probably the last 15 years or so. The roadway lies on top of wetlands, and over time it's been sinking. You can actually, if you drive through there, you know that some time ago they actually relocated the water main above ground, so you actually see it's a very large water main on the side of the road. So different alternatives were evaluated, and it was determined that the best option would be to just completely relocate this section of roadway, and then the existing road, that existing section would be basically restored as wetlands. So it's about a $30 million project. It's currently not programmed, but we recognize the importance of this project both for the town of Stoughton and also regionally. It's a major regional connector, but also going beyond transportation. Obviously, there's very important utility connections there with the water main, the electric. You can see the electric is listing on the side of the road there. So we're very appreciative of MassDOT for pushing this project forward. And even though it's currently not programmed, design continues to move forward. And that's my only update for this tip. Otherwise, tip's in good shape, both the highway and the transit side.
Thank you, Bill, very much. Any questions for Bill on the tip? Hearing none, I'm going to move forward to the next item, which is the bipartisan infrastructure law bill funding opportunities, Safe Streets for All, and the Reconnecting Communities pilot program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yep, it's a mouthful. It
Sure is.
So most of you probably know, I've probably heard a little bit about both of these funding opportunities that have come through the new transportation legislation. One of them is Safe Streets for All. That you notice funding opportunity for that came out about 2.5 months ago now, and then somewhat more recently was the Reconnecting Communities pilot program. So I think the easiest thing would probably just, I do our presentation, so probably just quickly go through it, and then I'll talk about our approach as a NPO or RPA. Just want to or skip to the presentation, John? Okay. Next slide. Next one. Okay, so what is SS4A? So Safe Streets for All, it's a new funding opportunity that came through by the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's funded at $5 billion over the next 5 years, so $1 billion a year. The goal of this project is to the goal of this program is to support the national strategy to reduce serious injuries and fatalities on the transportation network. We had been making pretty good progress for a decade or so, and then the last couple of years, there's been a stark reversal. So it's been a increase in serious injuries, increase in fatalities, and it's not just happening in Massachusetts; it's happening nationwide. So that's one of the motivators of this program. There are obviously other programs that address safety. Some of you familiar with, like, for example, HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program. That's been very successful over the years. But so this is kind of supplemental and just a new program. So you want to skip to the next one? Okay, so who can apply for SS4A? So an MPO can, municipalities can, counties can, federal recognized tribes can, or it can be multi-jurisdictional. So different MPOs can join together, different towns can join together. Who's absent from applying for this is state DOT. So state can apply for this. This is meant to be more of a local initiative. Next slide. So eligible activities under SS4A. So first and foremost, you develop a strategic action plan, and then supplemental activities for that would support that action plan would also be qualified activities. And then you can also apply for implementation grants or like capital construction grants. So this is a big distinction, and so I know some of you on the call have heard from me in the last month or so. I've been reaching out to the communities, just kind of feeling interest. And so one thing that's kind of been a point of confusion a little bit is, so like a lot of the towns have some great ideas for implementation of this program, like actual projects, and we're very excited for that, and hopefully we get some we can actually eventually get some of those implementation grants. But one thing that needs to be clarified is that to qualify for an implementation grant, it has to be identified in an action plan. Very few places in Massachusetts currently have an action plan. I think the city of Springfield does. There's another city in Massachusetts, but most places do not have one. So that's where we're all in the same boat right now in the state. We need to develop action plans. Next slide. So this is what an action plan will look like. It's very engagement heavy. So be engaged in the community. It has a leadership structure. It's very data intensive. Data driven safety analysis. There's a very big equity component. So these are the different components that would be in an action plan. Next one. So, and as I mentioned, you can also, if you do have an action plan and it didn't fully address something, or there needs to be more analysis done, you can apply for another grant that would supplement that action plan. So these are some of the supplemental activities that could be applied for. Next. And so you can just Sean, you can just kind of scroll through these next few ones, the implementation ideas. So these are just talks about, once you do have an action plan, the implementation grants, what they can be used for. So like applying low cost safety enhancements, enhancing walkability and accessibility, all kinds of ways of improving safety, speed management. So there's a variety of examples of what an implementation grant could be used for. So this an overview of the funding. So and so you can see it's called subdivision, but a community can apply for up to $1 million, whereas an MPO can apply for up to $5 million. And there is 80-20 match, so it's 80% federal, and then there's a 20% local match requirement. While it hasn't been fully identified and fully addressed, MassDOT has indicated that Secretary Tesler has indicated that the state would be willing to basically carry that local match. So if any community was awarded a grant, especially an implementation grant, and had trouble coming up with that 20% local match, there is the possibility that the state would pay for that, and that's federal law doesn't preclude that. And obviously the state has been an excellent partner in safety. They want to see these projects, so they've expressed a great willingness to really help both MPOs and communities. Okay, so that the next one, Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program. So this, you can go to the next one. This program, so the idea here is to identify areas where a previous infrastructure project, a facility has hindered economic activity or create some sort of barrier or burden to community connectivity in the community. So an example of this would be like, if a highway was built and split a community in half, and you have the east side, west side, and there's very poor connectivity between the two sides. Since this project was built, that would be an example. So this is newer. This came out about a month ago. So DOT's kind of been going through the same process that they did with Safe Streets for All, having a series of webinars informing people about this. It's the same budget, $1 billion over the next 5 years. So this just talks about eligible facilities. So it can be a highway, road, street, can be railway, anything like that. Next. Again, some of the how a planning grant could be used. So again, identifying the problem, identifying the issue, and then identifying potential solutions to mitigate that. Next. Next. And capital construction. So anything that's identified in those plans, this would be an opportunity to actually construct those identified improvements. So removal, retrofit, you get the idea. So that's kind of like a very brief overview of two kind of relatively complex programs. I've been working on Safe Streets for All since it came out about 2.5 months ago. What I can tell you, so from No Colony standpoint, we do intend as an MPO to apply for a regional, to apply to develop a regional strategic action plan that would cover all 17 of our communities. That would, so this is consistent with our safety performance objectives and initiatives. It's equitable. It would include make sure that everyone in our region has an opportunity. And then if granted and once developed, then that would pave the way for communities to then apply for implementation grants. So some caveats. So an entity cannot be attached to two applications, or an application cannot be coming from two different entities. So that's I live in Abington, so I use Abington for example. Say Abington applies for to develop an action plan, and then Old Colony Planning Council applies to develop on behalf of the MPO an action plan for the region that would cover Abington. Well, that would negate both applications, because both two different entities applying for the same jurisdiction. So that's one reason why I've been really reaching out to everyone. I'm interested in how you see this program being implemented, but it is important to collaborate, and so far I think we do have good collaboration. I think talking to those of you that I've talked to, everyone's been well receptive of this idea that we as a NPO will apply for regional safety action plan, and that's consistent with other NPOs in the state. So for example, Boston intends to apply for one that covers their region. Merrimack Valley does. Franklin and Tucson and Martha's Vineyard, they're kind of taking a unique approach. They're joining forces and kind of a rural focused application, as those regions are much more rural than other parts of the state. So that's kind of unique. So that's basically the approach that most of us in the state are taking. As far as Reconnecting Communities pilot program, we do, as an NPO, we do not intend at this time to apply for one of those grants. I know I've talked to several of you, and I know a few of you have do intend to apply for those, and we're strongly supportive of that. I think my personal recommendation would be just to collaborate with MassDOT, work with MassDOT. So if you do have an idea for an RCP application in your community, get in touch with District 5, and then just talk to them, feel them out, see how they feel about it, and get any support that you can from them. And they've been very supportive so far with everyone that has contacted them. So on your screen, 2 websites for each program. Sean talked about the Navigator page earlier. Navigator is an excellent resource, not just for these programs, but for all things USDOT. It's they've done a really great job with that. It's really useful, very user friendly. And then obviously you can contact me with any questions. I'm sure some of you probably have questions, so I'm happy to take any of them now.
See, Shane O'Brien has a question.
I have 2 questions, if I'm allowed.
Sure.
First question. So as long as we don't file for a action plan, you guys should be golden. Which is
Correct.
all right. So we won't do that. Bridgewater will make that clear, and I'll let the powers that be know. But we can file for other applications. Just communicate with DOT. Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
And I guess the other question is, are you as part of this application, are you looking for local letters of support from towns and cities in the region?
That I have to. So I haven't got that deep into the application process so far. I'm not sure if they look for letters of support.
Okay.
But if they do, then we would be very appreciative of that. And if they are looking for that, then I'd be reaching out to all of you and asking for support.
All right. I just wanted to put that on the radar to, like I said, let the town manager be aware.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Bill, I just had a comment. And would this come under Safe Streets, the safety action plan for funding? Is that where that money would come from, Safe Streets, the Safe Streets program?
Yeah, so this is a completely new program so the previous transportation legislation, so a lot of those existing programs did carry over into this one. This one, Safe Streets for All, it's completely new, so it's a standalone program in the federal legislation, just as Reconnected Communities is.
Okay, okay. That, I wasn't sure.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of acronyms. I know.
nice.
I was guilty of it. I know others were guilty of it when it first came out, because um, we're all really used to saying Safe Routes to School, which is a completely different program. But
Right,
so
you know, it's so,
yeah,
it's so close. When you
yeah, I
started
mean,
saying that, I was thinking of the other program
yeah,
right away.
yeah. I was guilty of that in the beginning as well.
Bill Fitzgerald has a question on the chat there. He wants to know when the deadline is.
So
If
the
you know.
deadline for this round is September 15th. So we'll have. So basically, my August is very, very busy. My August is really developing this application for the region, and yeah, once that's completed, then obviously I would share the news with all our communities, and then so this is I kind of rushed past this point. So this is a 5-year program. So this particular deadline, it rolled up pretty fast for this fiscal year, September 15th. But next year there'll be another round. So it'll be so anyone didn't get an action plan granted, they'll have an opportunity to apply again, or if they did get an action plan, they could apply for implementation grants. It is so it'll be around a while.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions for Bill? Thanks for the presentation. And you're right, it is confusing.
Yeah,
Yeah, really is. So we'll have to take our time, sit down and read it slowly, then call you with questions.
absolutely. Always here.
Next item is the post-pandemic traffic trends report and also the review of traffic trends following the pandemic.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is my item. Just
Okay.
providing another update on the traffic trends project that we have been doing since the summer 2020, when it was, it became obvious how low the traffic levels were reaching during the height of the pandemic, during the first couple of months. And, we've been tracking it for a little over 2 years now, and gave an update earlier this year and figured it would be a good idea to provide a different update. So just another traffic update with the traffic over the last couple of months. Smaller than usual increases in April and May. April had an increase of about 21,000 vehicles over March, and May about 16,500 vehicles over April, compared to 32,000 vehicles in April 2019 over March 2019. And then May had about 25,000. So still increasing in the, with the warmer months coming, into late spring, early in summer, but just not as great of increases as we've seen in previous springs. Besides the month of January, traffic in all the other months up to May of this year have been within 5% of the baseline, which was the 2019 calendar year. There were a couple of new factors that have affected traffic over the last couple of months that I will get into later on. And multiple of the locations on the MassDOT MS2 system from which I have extracted data for this project, have suspended their data input due to some construction projects that I will also get into in this presentation. So here is a map of the 7 locations that we use. They are MassDOT continuous counts that are on Major highways, we have 4 on Route 24. In the town of Randolph. There's 1 in the town of Avon, 1 in the city of Brockton, and then 1 on the West Bridgewater line. There's 2 on Route 3, 1 as far north as Weymouth, the other as south as in the town of Plymouth, excuse me, and then 1 on 495 just south of 24 in the town of Raynham. Here's a look for the traffic up through the month of May for this year compared to the baseline, with only 2 significant events that potentially had effects on traffic. There was the snowstorm on January 29th or 30th that had a significant dip in traffic because we got, I want to say, 2 to 3 feet of snow, if I remember correctly. And then the mask mandate in the city of Brockton, as well as across Massachusetts for schools, came in the end of February. And then traffic on Easter compared over the last 3 years, dating back to 2020, has only gone up across the 7 locations. Obviously had a huge increase this time last year with cases going down and the COVID vaccine become readily available to most of the population. And then this year, just another increase over Easter 2021 with cases being significantly lower than this time last year. And then Memorial Day had the same results. The traffic increased last year over 2020, and then this year increased over 2021. And then I'll just quickly go through the data for each of the locations in the scope of this project. As you can see, some of the locations, this location specifically on Route 24 north of 123 here in the city of Brockton, during the months of February and March had traffic that was higher than the baseline year, but then during the months of April and May, it did increase from month to month, just not significant, not to the rates during the baseline year. And even here in the month, or in the town of Plymouth, the location on Route 3, it did not see the amount of increased traffic in the months of April and May that they usually experience just from people, traveling down Route 3 to go to the Cape. Over the last couple of years when I've been doing this project analysis, the Plymouth location was one of the locations that traditionally had current levels close to, if not higher than the baseline, just for people wanting to get back outside from being stuck indoors and wanting to get down to the Cape, down to the beaches. And then here's a look at all of the locations combined. As I stated earlier, the month of January was more than 5% away from the baseline for the month of January, but all the other months were within 5% of the baseline. The month of March was just over 0.5% away from the baseline, which had some hopes that traffic would go back to higher levels. And then here's some charts over the last 4 years, including the baseline year. As you can see with the graph on the right, which shows the average daily traffic by month. From the month, for the months of January to May 2021 was the closest to the baseline, which is the data in green. The data in black was for last calendar year 2021. 2022 had shown increased levels for the data that was available, and but for the months of June and July, we don't have any data, and I will get into that in the next couple of slides. So the reason for the evolution of the study, why the data only went through the month of March, there are 3 state projects on 2 highways in our region that have impacted the continuous locations that I have extracted data from for this project. Project 604223, resurfacing and related work on Route 3 in the towns of Bourne and Plymouth. It affected one of the study locations. There was no data for a month. That project has been completed, and that location is back online. And then the other 2 projects are for resurfacing and related work, as well as pavement preservation on Route 24, for as far north as the town of Avon and going as far south as the town of Raynham. the Brockton and Bridgewater locations have not had any data since June 20th. And the Avon location is still producing data, but it will be turned off sometime in the near future once they start doing the resurfacing of Route 24 in the town of Avon and Stoughton. And just given that, this has affected over half of the locations in this project scope, it has made it difficult to keep up with the continuous data since there have been multiple gaps in the data input into the MS2 system. But this is not going to stop our data collection efforts. We have multiple other traffic measuring programs and projects. The MassDOT traffic counting program that we do every year with a list of ATRs that they send us, we've actually completed our list of locations from them. We have the local technical assistance program, which is headed up by Bill McNulty. We have the before and after ATR locations, which Kyle Moat will be presenting after I complete my presentation here. We have a Route 18 corridor study that will be coming up in the next federal fiscal year. And we are still doing our road safety audits at multiple locations program, which is a part of our UPWP, and then the MassDOT MS2 system, which we input our data collection efforts into so that it can be part of their system. And I will continue to monitor the permanent locations if and when they resume operation once the 3 previous projects I mentioned are completed. And then just kind of recent results and looking ahead. As I said earlier, April and May saw increases over each of the prior months, but less than the baseline. The gas prices that surged, starting in, I believe it was the middle of March, they likely played a role in the less traffic on the roads. People having their wallets hit harder at the gas pumps. And COVID cases did increase over that time as well with the new with the Omicron subvariant. But still no restrictions have been put back into effect, or no different ones have been implemented. And BAT actually reported that they had a significantly increased ridership in the month of June. They saw 72% of their pre-COVID ridership compared to their monthly average of 60% in the previous months before June. So possibly more people were taking the bus in the Brockton area. And depending on the length of or the duration of the MassDOT projects on Route 24, this might be the last update for the traffic trends. Just with the multiple gaps in the data, would make it difficult to provide the presentations that I have before. And the page on the OCPC website with the data and the interactive map will remain in case anybody wishes to view the data and utilize it as a resource. I will have it updated with the graphs that I presented here today, and we will be keeping that. And that concludes my presentation. And Kyle, I'd like to discuss your portion.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, so we looked through our ATR data that we had for 2019, and there's even a few for 2018, and then we went out in 2021 and recollected that data to compare it. So you can go to the next slide. So just some takeaways I'll mention first before we go through all these. 11, so we did a ATR in each of our communities. Some takeaways, 11 of 17 or 65% of locations, the 85th percentile speed increased. And as far as heavy vehicle percentage, that also increased by 65%. And as far as average daily traffic, 88% of the locations, or 15 of the 17, that increased. So I'll go through quickly these locations. First in Abington, Washington Street, Route 18 north of Summer Street. You can see the average daily traffic decreased from 22,000 to about 20,000. AM peak hour stayed the same. PM peak hour went from 5 p.m. down to, or up to 4 p.m. The speed went from 36 miles per hour. That increased up to 39. And then the heavy vehicle percentage went from 8.7% up to 14.7. Avon Page Street, west of West High Street. You can see the average daily traffic decreased. AM peak hour stayed the same. PM peak hour stayed the same. You can see with this location as well, the speed went from 39 miles per hour up to 42. And the heavy vehicle percentage also increased. Bridgewater, Bedford Street, north of Cottage Street, average daily traffic decreased. The AM peak hour went from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And the PM peak hour went from 4 p.m. to 2 p.m. 85th percentile speed went from 43 miles per hour up to 46. And the heavy vehicle percentage increased from 8.3 to 13.1. Brockton, East Ashland Street at Abington Town Line. You can see the ADT decreased. AM peak hour stayed the same, as well as the PM peak hour. And the 85th percentile speed increased from 42 to 44 miles per hour. And the heavy vehicle percentage went from 5.1% up to 11.7.
Doubled.
Yeah. You can go to the next one, Sean. You wouldn't, you're on the same.
You didn't, no, you didn't. I just did the Brockton one, so I moved to Duxbury.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Powder Point Ave, east of Western Road. ADT stayed pretty much the same, just a small increase of 300 vehicles about. AM peak hour went from 10 a.m. to 11. PM peak hour stayed the same at 2 p.m. Speed increased 31 to 33 miles per hour, and the heavy vehicle increased 4.3 to 7.6. East Bridgewater, Bedford Street, Route 18 at Whitman Town Line. You can see the ADT decreased by about 3,000 vehicles. AM peak hour went from 7 to 8 a.m. PM peak hour stayed the same at 4 p.m. Speed increased from 46 to 49 miles per hour. And heavy vehicle percentage stayed about the same for this location. Easton, Lincoln Street, west of Center Street. ADT stayed about the same. AM peak hour went from 8 a.m. to 7 a.m. PM peak hour stayed the same at 4 p.m. 85th percentile speed stayed about the same, 30 up to 31. And same with the heavy vehicle percentage, that stayed about the same.
Whoa.
So Halifax, Monpont Street at Plimpton Town Line. ADT decreased a little bit by about 400 vehicles. AM peak hour stayed the same at 7 a.m. PM peak hour went from 5 p.m. to 4 p.m. 85th percentile speed went from 48 to 51. And heavy vehicle percentage for this one increased a lot, 10.7% to 23.9. I don't know if that was an anomaly, but that was the data we got for that. Hanover Street, east of Grove Street, ADT stayed about the same. Peak hour stayed the same at 8 a.m. PM peak hour 5 p.m. to 4 p.m. 85th percentile speed went from 43 to 44 miles per hour, and a small increase with heavy vehicle percentage from 5.9 to 7.4. Hanson, East Washington Street, Route 58 east of West Washington Street. Small decrease in ADT. AM peak hour and PM peak hour both stayed the same. 85th percentile speed decreased from 38 to 37 miles per hour. This location actually had a decrease in heavy vehicle percentage from 13.8 to 6.5. Kingston, Main Street, Route 106, west of Elm Street. The ADT for this decreased from 14,000 down to 13,000. AM peak hour went from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and PM peak hour from 5 p.m. to 4 p.m. The percentile speed went from 38 up to 40, and heavy vehicle percentage just about doubled from 5.9 to 12.2. Pembroke Curve Street, west of Center Street, ADT decreased. AM peak hour stayed the same, as well as PM peak hour. 85th percent speed, 30 to 31, and a slight decrease in heavy vehicle percentage from 6.1 to 4.8. Plymouth Court Street, north of Cherry Street, slight decrease in ADT. AM peak hour from 11 down to 8 AM, and PM peak hour stayed the same at 4 PM. Speed stayed the same, and heavy vehicle percentage stayed the same. Plimpton Main Street at Carvertown Line, ADT was about the same. AM PM peak hour stayed the same. Speed was the same, and just the heavy vehicle percentage also increased by a lot, 11.8 to 23.3.
Whoa.
Stoughton Park Street, north of Turnpike Street. This had a big decrease in ADT, 21,000 down to about 16,000. AM peak hour from 8 AM to 7 AM. PM peak hour stayed the same at 4 PM. Speed from 42 to 43, and heavy vehicle percentage basically stayed the same. West Bridgewater, North Main Street, north of Matfield Street. ADT decreased a little bit. PM peak hour, 8 AM to 7 AM. PM peak hour from 5 PM to 4 PM. The speed went from 42 down to 41. So this is one of the few locations where the speed decreased. And then heavy vehicle percentage went from 11.9 to 14.6. And finally, Bedford Street, Route 18 at Abington Town Line in Whitman. ADT went from around 17,000 down to 13,000. AM peak hour stayed the same at 7 AM. PM peak hour went from 5 PM to 4 PM. Speed stayed the same at 43 miles per hour. And the heavy vehicle percentage actually decreased from 10.6 to 7.1. And so that concludes that. That took up a little bit of time, but thank you for bearing with me. If anybody has any questions on that, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks for that presentation. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll maybe do another round of this. I don't know, maybe a couple of years from now. So we'll keep on top of that. See how that changes.
Yeah, Kyle, excellent. I think the heavy vehicle percentages were interesting. You know, in some of the towns that they drastically went down, and then you said, like, how did that happen? You know, something like that. That was very good.
Internally, we had some discussion, and between Sean and Kyle and the team, they really have done a great job, the transportation team, in terms of data. You know, one of the things that we're going to look to do is to bring in our community planning and economic development side to see what sort of economic development activity has happened along these same routes with the heavy vehicle. So continued discussion, but we want to know what Hunter feels. I want to, just Kyle's working from home, but thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome.
Both presentations excellent.
Joe has his hand up.
I didn't even see it.
You're muted, Joe.
You're muted, Joe.
Sorry about that. I was a bit surprised about the heavy traffic myself because we've got an increase in Stoughton and Randolph with Amazon warehousing. And all you do have to stand on Turnpike in front of the Cumberland Farms and do traffic counts, and every other vehicle is a heavy, and I'm talking about a 53-footer. So I don't know where they're going once they leave Stoughton, but they're not hitting the counts for some reason. Maybe they're going north and they're above your counters, but I still can't see the heavy equipment traffic counts that Kyle was getting. So stay tuned on that one. I think that may be an aberration.
Yeah, I mean, it could have just been the location, the trucks weren't as
Right.
heavy at that spot. Sean, what was the Stoughton one? What did that go from for the heavy vehicle?
It
Oh,
went up by
up a little bit.
0.2%. But I mean, the Amazon warehouse in Stoughton is at the old Reebok factory, which is on, just off of 139, right off of 24. So, with the big 53-foot Amazon trucks, they could just be getting on and off 24 right there, and getting right, right the borders Randolph, which is obviously quite a ways away from this location that we that we did for this analysis. But if we put counters up in that area, like over by the Cumberland Farms, by the Target, I'm sure that probably would yield a very high percentage of heavy vehicles.
Well,
Yeah,
just as a point of information for both Sean and Kyle, there's a project winding its way through our permitting process. It's still in the ZBA stages because of variances that required, but it's going to be a 32 bay terminal with being leased out to a quote Fortune 100 company. So yet to be disclosed. So you may want to think about putting that on Turnpike right there, Sean and Kyle.
Yeah, definitely. We'll look into it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Kyle, very much.
you're
Great
welcome.
presentations. A lot of work. Did anyone have any more questions for either Kyle or Sean? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna move on to agenda item 7C, the Old Colony FFY 2024 Long Range Transportation Plan and development of goals, objectives, and planning scenarios.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll try to be as brief in my presentation as possible in the interest of time. So we are kicking off, or we actually have already kicked off development of our 2050 long range transportation plan. It started a while ago with the first steps was the formation of a regional, statewide socioeconomic projections committee. So that's been meeting monthly for a while now. So that's tasked with coming up with population and employment forecast through 2050. So that's been going on. So now we're starting to start building the foundation of this plan development going forward. And so I would indicate that, from here going forward, you're going to be hearing LRTP updates nearly monthly, if not monthly, going forward as we look to ultimately release a completed draft LRTP sometime around May or June next year. That's the timeline. So today I'm going to talk about the goals of the plan, which is kind of like one of the first steps of developing our plan. And most of them aren't going to be news to any of you. If they're a lot basically carry over from previous plans, maybe reworded or consolidated a little bit, and then also talking about planning scenarios, which is another initiative that we've been kicking off. So if you just want to skip to the go forward to the presentation, Sean. Thank you. So next one. So the next few slides, just the overall goals of the LRTP. So safety being, first and foremost, we want a safe system that's reduces risk for serious injuries and fatalities for all users, both motorized and vulnerable roadway users. Transparency and equity, so a fully transparent planning process and equitable that ensures equal access to all persons in the region. Economic vitality, so a transportation network that supports the economic vibrancy of the region. Security, making sure that what we're planning for is a secure transportation network. Accessibility, make sure that the system is fully accessible to all persons living in or traveling through the region. Clean environment, obviously very important. We want to make sure that as we move forward, we're not only minimizing greenhouse gas emissions and runoff pollution, but hopefully improving upon existing standards, existing conditions. I should say resiliency, making sure that the system is resilient to forces such as climate change. Keeping it in a state of good repair, emphasizing maintenance and making sure that pavement and bridges stay in a good state of good repair, as well as transit facilities.
Yeah, okay.
And efficiency, maximizing efficiency of the transportation network, minimizing costs that would be associated with societal costs associated with congestion. So those are the goals, and then what's still being developed. So the objectives that will support those goals, and you'll be seeing more updates on this going forward. The next few slides talk about the planning scenarios. So these are the planning scenarios. So if you recall, the last updated LRTB, that was the first time that USDOT required MPOs to identify planning scenarios in their plans. And at that time in our last plan, our planning scenarios were largely fiscally based. So they looking at different levels of funding and priorities going forward. We're taking a different approach this time. We're looking at factors that we know have affected the region so far in the last few years, and how they could affect the region as we develop, and how people travel and move and live through 2050. So these are the 6 main factors. So climate change, the future of work, population trends, housing and economy, prosperity, and technology. So climate change. So and with each of these factors, we'll be looking at so what we know has happened, and so if trends continue to accelerate, or if the trend accelerates and gets worse, or if kind of maintain a status quo, or if we start to reverse. So these are different things, say, different things that can happen. So, obviously if climate change just continues to accelerate, not only would be looking at, more coastal flooding, more disruption and destruction to the transportation network, but you also start looking at major issues such as managed evacuation of vulnerable areas. Whereas if you can, kind of plateau climate change and even reverse it, then you gradually see sea level rise slow or stop, and things would potentially improve, but there could be other trade-offs as well. So this just gives you an idea of how we're approaching each factor. So we'll look at whether whether it accelerates, whether it just kind of stays the same as it has been, or if it can reverse, or if the trend reverses. So next one, the future of work. So last few years, obviously we've seen an unprecedented change in how people work. I don't think anybody ever saw this coming. We for a long time we've been talking about telecommuting and these objectives that we kind of hoped that we'd eventually get to, but then pandemic came, slammed everything into high gear, and now we're in this, we're suddenly in this world where a vast majority of people are kind of on this, different work schedule than they were 3 years ago. So what under this we'll be looking again, does this trend continue? Does it accelerate? Does it kind of stay the same where it has been, or do we go back to full time in the office? And how those changes will affect the region. Population trends. So I mentioned that socioeconomic committee. we've looked at how the state and region has grown so far. And then looking at trends going forward. So there's a lot of unknown questions right now. So one of them is the baby boomers. It's a very large cohort right now, and does that cohort get replaced? Does immigration eventually outpace immigration, and we start to lose population? And how will this affect the region? So those are things that we look here. Housing and economy. We're obviously, Massachusetts, not alone with a lot of places in the country with, it's often called a housing crisis. People kind of outpriced of housing right now. So looking at this going forward, what happens with this? Prosperity. This kind of looks at how people are going to work, what areas are going to work. So, can trends continue? We're looking at a strong knowledge-based economy, but that it eventually outprices, makes education out of reach for a lot of people. Whereas where education is so in demand, but so many people are out of reach of it. And other things that we're looking at. So this next one can probably fall under either prosperity or technology, but like electric vehicles, as more and more electric vehicles come on, obviously that's great for mitigating climate change. But one of the drawbacks we've noticed with electric vehicles is that they are much heavier than a traditional vehicle, and they're deteriorating pavement and bridges at a much higher rate than traditional fossil fuel based vehicles are. So that's more electric vehicles coming on the road. That means accelerated deterioration of the system and more costs for maintaining it. Next one. Technology, again, just some of the things we're looking at as we go forward. And so that's kind of a brief overview of where we're at right now. So like right now we've identified those goals. Those goals are pretty solid. It's the objectives that are still being developed on how we'll achieve those goals. Planning scenarios still in development. These planning scenarios are consistent with both the state and other regions, what they're doing. So if anyone has any questions right now, I'm happy to answer them, or you can always contact me offline as well.
Bill, I was wondering on that safety point that you brought up earlier, if you could consider, I believe where 24 is 3 lanes in some places along our district, restricting that 3rd lane so with no trucks in that lane as part of your safety considerations.
Okay.
Like you see on the turnpike and other places where they're not 195 and so on, where they're not allowed in the 3rd lane. That would certainly increase the safety for passenger vehicles.
Good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And any additional questions for Bill? Hearing none. Thank you so much, Bill. Great presentation.
Thank you.
A lot to think about.
Did someone say something? No. Okay, I'm going to move forward to item 8A, which is community local technical assistance studies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I only have one real update. So the town of Hanover has requested they would do a traffic study of Grove Street, looking at traffic flow on that roadway and some nearby intersections. Town recently implemented a traffic rule change restricting movements in and out of Grove Street from Route 139. So we'll be doing a study to look at how that change has impacted not only that intersection where those movements, where that new rule is in effect, but how the adjacent intersections as well, where traffic is kind of being diverted. So we do have a good base set. We did a Route 139 corridor study a few years ago, so we have a lot of data as a base to work with. So that'll be a good study. And other projects that we're working on are listed in your staff report.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill? All right. 8B, which is the staff reviews E&F's EIRs. And that's Kyle, I think.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sean, you can go to the next slide. So we have two new projects, two E&Fs. The first one is in Easton, titled Easton Warehouse. And this is at the location, currently the mini golf and driving range off 138 in Easton. They're proposing development of approximately 101,000 square foot warehouse building, which will also contain a small amount of office space and approximately 109 vehicle parking spaces, 7 tractor trailer truck storage, and 7 loading docks. I actually went to the site visit for this project and asked them about truck trips, and they said there's going to be about 60 truck trips a day. They think that's an overestimation of that. And there's actually going to be a reduction in car trips since the mini golf and driving range won't be there anymore. So they're estimating 198 trips a day. Next project is also in Easton, Owl Ridge Estates. This is going to be a 6 single family lot residential subdivision proposed on 3.6 acres in the northern and central portions of the site. You can go to the next slide. And the Owl Ridge Estates, its address is 58 Mill Street, which is it's located just south of Borderland State Park. And then we have one notice of project change for the Upland Road Solar Facility in Plimpton. It's a reduction in impacted area to rare species habitat. It's a total site acreage reduction from 206 down to 197.2. We have a few certificates. First is for the ADM to Honnet mixed use development in Carver, Plymouth, and Wareham. The certificate states that this project adequately and properly complies with MIPA. Next certificate is the Lakeshore Center Phase 4 in Bridgewater. The certificate states that this project requires an environmental impact report. Next certificate is the Upland Road Solar Facility in Plimpton. And the certificate states that this project does not require an environmental impact report. We have a public notice, the notice of application for Chapter 91 Waterways Permit in Duxbury. Next slide. The application is in regard to the town of Duxbury performing beach and dune nourishment along the shoreline off Bay Avenue, Gurnett Road, and Ocean Road. And that concludes my report from MIPA.
Thank you, Kyle. Does anyone have comments or questions for Kyle? Okay, hearing none. I'm going to move forward. Want to open this up to regional concerns and local community transportation issues. All right, I wanted to say something at this point. This was really a great meeting, lots and lots of information. I'm wondering if it would be okay with the rest of the committee. I think Bill's last presentation on goals and objectives, I think that I'd like to move that over to the next agenda. Because I think that it was really a good presentation. And I think because of the lateness of the time, I think that we probably moved it a little quicker than maybe we could have, because I know people were dropping out. So if everyone would be okay, I'd love to see you do that one again, Bill, if you wouldn't mind, at the next meeting, you know, as one of the agenda items, and we can kind of take our times going through it, because there's so much information that you put in there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is that okay with the committee to do something like
Sure.
that? Yeah, because there was so much information with this meeting. You know, I'll go over and review everything, but great meeting, and can't thank the staff enough. You know, chock full of information for the region for all of us. So thank you for that consideration.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, no.
Madam Chair, one of
Noreen?
our
Yes.
attendees has his hand raised.
Okay,
Dennis
go ahead.
Dennis Carmen, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the committee, I hope you can hear me. You run such an efficient meeting, it's kind of tough for me to catch up, but earlier in the meeting, both the BAT Bus Company and GATRA were announcing the unveiling of some new applications in order to make sure you could purchase tickets or bus passes or whatever. And as not only a head of a nonprofit organization that focuses on a lot of low-income people, but as a resident of Halifax with a significant visual challenge, I'm very appreciative of those efforts in order to make something as simple as finding out where you can get tickets and where you can get passes, to make it simple that you can do it from your phone or you do it from another device. Much, much appreciated. So I simply wanted to say thank you. And your buses and trains leave so fast from the station that I wasn't able to get on board this one. So I apologize for the lateness of my response. But thank you. Really wonderful stuff.
Thank you for joining us, and a big thank you to BAT for all the information they provide us all with, and a great service.
Noreen, if I may,
Yes.
in case people doesn't know, I know Mary Walden didn't notice this, I'll mention it. Phone numbers to Old Colony Planning Council have changed. She sent out an email with all the different employees and their new phone numbers. So be aware of that.
Yeah, we all have brand new phones. So.
Yeah. There's
Thank
no,
you, Dan.
there's no contact, give a number and then go to 212 or 209 or whatever for different people. They all have their separate phone numbers, and she sent out an email with a list of names and new phone numbers. So it would help if people wanted it to print, just print it out and save it so they know. And of course, I put mine on my cell phone, so I have it. But just be aware that Old Colony now has brand new phone numbers.
Thank you, Dan, for adding that.
How would I get those?
It's on an email, John.
Yeah, but I don't do any emails. Can I call you, Danny, and get them from you?
Sure. Give me a call and I'll read them off to you. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Madam Chair, if I may, so
Yes.
I did put it in the chat, but I in my presentation, I meant to say, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge MassDOT and all the assistance that they provide, not only to us as Old Colony, but to our communities as well. Specifically, Bonnie Poland, her group there in the safety division, and Jenny and Jackie up there. They've done so much work rolling out assistance with SS4A. It's not even their program. They don't get, they're not eligible for any money under this, but they've done so much work. I've brought I've talked about the impact tool at this committee before, and that was already a great system, but they've just built upon that, and they've made it so easy to access a lot of the safety data that we're going to need for these applications, and walking us all through it. They've done so much work and such a great job. So definitely want to publicly recognize them for that, because not just us, but I think I speak for all our partner RPAs and NPOs that we're much appreciative of everything that they do.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to let everyone know, I just put the OCPC staff directory in the chat.
Oh, great, great. Thank you, Kyle.
So yeah, that's with everyone's new phone number.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, everyone, again. So I think that at this time, I'll probably have a motion to adjourn. And Bill, can you take that roll call for me, please?
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second,
All in
Sure.
favor? Okay, Bill,
Abington. Avon. Bridgewater,
Yes.
Brockton. Duxbury. East Bridgewater. Easton. Halifax. Hanover. Hanson,
Yes.
thank you. Kingston,
Yes.
Pembroke. Plymouth. Plimpton. Stoughton,
Yes.
thank you. West Bridgewater. And Whitman.
Yes.
yes.
Brockton Area Transit,
yes.
MassDOT District 5,
Yes.
thank you, and MassDOT Office of Transportation Planning.
This should
Okay.
probably-
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone, and stay cool. Stay out of that sun. See you next month.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Madam
Bye.
Chair.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.